These are the finished 4 platoons for bolt action US that I did, that you'll have seen. You'll have seen stuff about them either on the Tumblr Hobby channel or on the YouTube channel. The light is helping us here, so let's see if we can get them at a different angle maybe. Okay, so these fellas in the brown uniforms are Rangers, so US Army Rangers, with the platoon has got a forward artillery observer, an officer and a medic. Then it has only two squads with as many automatic weapons as they can possibly get. I gave the Rangers M1 carbines because it helps me to differentiate them from the standard US infantry who have the Garand, but I'll get to them in a minute. So they've got the carbines. These are painted. So I tried to do a better job of painting these than I normally do. I'm not sure that it shows, but it was fun to do them anyway. I've started to enjoy painting. Oh, this little team here. Right, so the differences are the fellas on the tall, thick bases are officers of some kind. He's got little captain's bars on his helmet, but I don't think the camera's showing it up well. So, for some reason the varnish went a little bit odd. This is a storm shield varnish. For some reason it's gone shiny on some of them and matte on the others. I think it might have been to do with the mix of the varnish to the water, but anyway. So the standard round discs, they're going to be just standard infantry, and the weapon that they've got is the weapon that they've got. Then the larger discs, that's some kind of weapons crew that's usually self-sufficient, so that's a whole unit there. These lozenge bases, the sort of they came from the Soviet set, but they're really useful for two-man teams. So this one here is a sniper team. Then you've got the standard bazooka teams, like that, and that's obviously a self-contained mortar unit. But the Rangers also get the ability to have, as well as a BAR, they also get these, I think it's called an M1919, which is like a stripped down 30 caliber machine gun, I think. I didn't have an abundance of World War II machine guns, so I just used some machine guns that were left over from tanks and put them on these lozenge bases so that they've got, you know, the squad comes with this extra. So the entire squad is everybody from the lozenge base to the NCO at the end with the submachine gun, and that's them. Then obviously you've got your bazooka teams. That little guy there with the patch on the back of his head, not a patch, it's what's it called, a pouch, with the pouch on the back of his head, he gave me the inspiration for the paratroopers, but we'll get to them in a minute. The regular army, again, this guy's got little captain's bars on it. Actually, sorry, that's not a captain's bar, that's just like a major's cluster, an oak cluster thing that they got, the little star. That guy's got captain's bars on his helmet, so you've got your medic and your captain and your forward artillery observer with his stogie. These fellas with the hats, they are combat engineers, and combat engineers get a higher proportion of fully automatic weapons than do regular infantry, and then they get a flamethrower team. Now the flamethrower teams, Warlord obviously do flamethrower teams, but I don't like them because I can't tell what they are from ages away, so I made the flamethrowers. Out of bits. So you've got the flamethrower and his helper, his assistant, and they're supposed to be the sort of the straps. So everybody's covered in grime because the assumption is that they've been out in the field doing soldiery things for however long they've been there. They get a bazooka team and a sniper team. So the combat engineers are the guys with the hats. So there's 5 of them. So flamethrower, carbine, 2 BARs and a submachine gun. Then that's just a standalone unit of a flamethrower team. And then they get the squads, and the squads are 1, 2, 3, 4 M1 Garands, then 2 BARs, and then an NCO with a submachine gun. And there are 4 regular army squads. So that's the platoon of the regular army. Right, I'll move them out of there and then get the others in. Okay, that's the forward artillery observer of the Marines. Or is he Marines? No, he's a paratrooper. Sorry, he's a paratrooper, and you can tell that because of the colour scheme and also because he's covered in pouches. That's the officer, again covered in pouches. I gave this guy a trophy weapon. He's got a German submachine gun instead of an American one because, you know, he might have been out surrounded by the enemy for ages. They've got the standard sniper team. I made them into a little diorama with the addition of a German helmet just there because they're dropped down behind enemy lines and they're firing in all directions like in a film. There's a bazooka team and another bazooka team, and paratroopers are the only US infantry unit in the book to get a 2-man light mortar. Now, if you know the ranges at all, you'll know that these mortar pieces come from the British set, specifically the 8th Army British set, which is why the sleeves are rolled up. But I figured, well, I don't actually care. I just need the light mortar, so that's the light mortar team for the paratroopers. Because if I can, I'd rather have plastic than metal anyway, because it weighs less, it's easier to transport, it's easier to put together. I'll get to easy to put together in a minute. So these paratrooper squads, they've also got carbines rather than rifles, because it helps me to remember that these aren't regular army, and also obviously they're completely covered in pouches. So this guy is catching the light pretty well. So I used a ton, because you end up getting loads and loads of pouches, particularly in the Soviet set. So if you go and you look at my World War II Soviets for the Astra Militarum, you find that you end up with just loads and loads of pouches in your bits box. So that's why they've got those. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 M1 carbines, which just counts as rifles. I think that guy might have some kind of Soviet weapon, but I might have run out of carbines. It doesn't much matter where he's got. It's a rifle. And then they've got 2 submachine guns in each squad. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus a weapons team. Now these are just like the Rangers. They get the stripped down light machine gun. I ran out of light machine guns of this pattern. Hang on, let's move him out of the way. So this pattern is just like with the Rangers, where it's off a vehicle. I ran out of those, and I realised that I needed one more. So this is just a Bren gun, again from the 8th Army set, and again, I don't really care. You know, if a paratrooper is behind enemy lines, he's going to pick up whatever's there. If it happens to be a Bren gun, it's a Bren gun. If it's an MG34, it's going to be an MG34. But I gave him a Bren gun because it's an allied weapon, and then it makes my tiny mind less confused. I think it looks okay. So that's the paratroopers. And then there's the Marines. The Marines have got... Now, when I watched the film The Thin Red Line, which is a confusing movie because it's nothing to do with British Redcoats, it was about the US Marines in the Pacific, and one of the things that I noticed was they've got, oh, hang on, they've got dark green uniforms and then sort of bright, almost yellow green equipment pouches and grenades. So that's what I went with these fellas, and I gave them Games Workshop heads so that I would remember these US guys with the Games Workshop, aside from like that weapons crew and that weapons crew and that weapons crew, but then, you know, they don't have pouches all over them, so they're not paratroopers. Anywhere I could give somebody another head, I gave them Games Workshop heads so that I would remember these are the Marines. So they've got 2 submachine guns, 3 BARs, and 3 shotguns per squad, and there's only 2 squads. They've got 1 sniper team and 1 bazooka team. The theatre list for the Marines doesn't give them 2 bazooka teams, but it does allow them to have an anti-tank gun, and I think that's the 57mm one, and a mortar. So, and obviously a medium machine gun, because everybody gets access to those. So they've got an officer there, and then this guy's either going to be a forward artillery observer or he's going to be a medic. What he is, oh, there's a wasp that's just come in. Let's hope it doesn't sting me. What he is, he's a British minesweeper model from the command set that you get with the British Army box, and I didn't have any use for him, so I cut his head off and I gave him a different head so that he's got so that he doesn't have the headset of the sorry, this wasp is getting dangerously close. Anyway, so that he doesn't have the headset of the minesweeper, and also so that he's got like a towel, you know, sort of over his head because it's hot where he is. So you'll see these are the guys who've got like towels or handkerchiefs on their heads to sort of help stop the sweat getting in their eyes because they're in, you know, hot places where it might rain a lot. So I'm not entirely sure how historically accurate that is. You see that in a lot of Vietnam movies where the US Army will tie their towels from their kits. You know, they'll wrap them around their heads or something, put them under their helmets to stop the sweat getting down the back of their neck and so on. But so it obviously, I mean, Kachan heads from Games Workshop aren't historically accurate either. So I'm not entirely sure that there were that many US Marines in the Second World War sporting Mohicans, but you do what you can. So that's the army. Now you'll have already seen the video where the vehicle pool expanded with the M3 half tracks and the Greyhounds. And then if you go back and you look at the Commonwealth and Kuomintang platoon army, you'll see, you know, the plethora of Shermans and M5 Stuarts that they can draw on. So yeah, so this is 4 armies, so that's 8 allied armies altogether. And then the next thing to paint up, I think I still haven't started on the Mantic Rats, so the next thing is probably gonna be the Japanese and German platoons that just arrived, so that the 8 allied platoons that I've got have something to fight against that makes sense. So that was it.